Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. My name's Harry. I'm here today with Ananth Lazarus, a dear friend of mine who's joining the podcast with me to talk about his career, his business, and the landscape of distribution here in Asia. Ananth, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks. It's a real pleasure being here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Great. So for somebody who doesn't know you and watching this or listening to this for the first time, how would you introduce yourself?
Wow. Okay. 30 years plus in the IT industry across companies like Compaq, IBM, and Microsoft. At Microsoft, I spent over 19 years across the Asia-Pacific region. I think I've covered every market in this part of the world and love the diversity that's Asia.
And so you've done a lot of roles from corporate life, and now you run your own consultancy services, a few of them, by the way. How did you make that switch?
It's not an easy one, okay? But at some point in my career, I said, what's next? I always had this passion of running my own gig. I did get offers from another cloud vendor to join them, but then I said, should I be doing the same thing, or shall I take that risk, so-called risk, and really explore what's next? It's been 5 years in consulting, and I'm loving every day.
I'm really curious about the switch that you made. I mean, you talk about, that what is that burning desire to make that call? Like a lot of people would say, I would like to keep the safety of the corporate check versus going out there by myself, no safety net. You talk about that burning desire and that almost like a calling. So I'm curious about, how did you lean into that calling and take the chance with the risk versus outweighing the safety net of a corporate check?
Oh, believe me, it's not easy, okay? Did I spend the first few months, waking up in the middle of the night some nights and saying, damn it, you gave up a corporate check. Why did you do it? I did. No jokes about that. It is a serious question. But then I had a financial plan. I decided there will be no plan B. You have to make it work. Keep at it, okay? Learn from some of the mistakes you make. Sometimes it's just not pursuing an opportunity because you know it's not going anywhere, right? You give up, you move on to the next thing, you cast your net out wide, see what catches, learn from that, and move on. And that's what I did.
That takes a significant mindset shift. Like I'm listening to you say that, and I think a lot of people who will be listening to this would probably think, how do you back yourself? Like, how did you back yourself when you realize there's no plan B? So you got to get up every morning. I'm sure there were nights where you thought, there's no pipeline, there's nothing coming in. I've got to back myself. I've got to keep going out there. I've got to cast the net wide. How do you get yourself out of bed? And what do you tell yourself to keep pushing yourself?
I think part of it, honestly, is ego. You've got to make it work, right? Yeah. Second is passion. I've always been very passionate about what I do, right? And third is you've got to have self-confidence, okay? How are you leveraging your 30 plus years of experience, some to give back, some to really add value to other people's business? If you know that and you know you can add value, just keep chipping at it and it'll all work out. That's been my experience.
So the last 5 years, you've been providing consultancy services. You've been giving back to the community, giving back to customers and partners, helping them navigate the ecosystem. How has that journey been?
Trial and error initially, okay? But today, when I look at the 5 years, the things that stand out is we provide fractional partner leadership to startups. I help in transformation of small and mid-sized companies, moving to a recurring revenue system or customer success. And over the last 1.5 years, a new hat I wear, which I'm very excited about, is looking after Global Tech Distributor Council's the council in Asia Pacific and Japan. That's fascinating given all the changes that are happening in distribution. The timing couldn't be better.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think in the last 2-3 years, there's been a significant platform shift with the arrival of AI, and now distributors and partners and SIs in the ecosystem are all trying to figure out how they play and where they play. I like how you just talked about GTDC, and about the leadership that you play in that council, and how they give thought leadership to partners and to look at the ecosystem about how they need to think about how they go to market. So when we think about distribution, it's a very traditional business model, and now it's being disrupted with SaaS and cloud. I mean, all cloud's always been there for the last few years, but now it's having a significant shift. How do you think about the role of distribution that's being played, especially in the last 5 years?
Good question. So, do distributors still do the pick, pack, ship? Absolutely. They are experts in providing technical services, logistics, and financial support to the ecosystem. That continues. That's a strength. But if you see what's happening with the rise of the platform, the entire distribution model is changing and will continue to evolve, right? So we see distributors today as ecosystem orchestrators, ecosystem integrators, I would say, and also a powerhouse to provide insights on the business. So the rise of the platform has made that possible today. So, and that's going to continue for a long time to come.
So specifically in the region, you see there are a lot of distributors in terms of the big names. You've also got smaller names in there. They all serve a specific purpose depending on the country, the nuances of the product or the platform that they're looking to do for the principal or the vendor. How does someone choose the right distributor, the right partner to be able to go to market?
How much time do you have?
We have a lot of time.
No, I think it's about few things from my perspective, right? One is, what is the solution set being carried by the existing distributor, right? How do you plug into that solution offering, right? So that's paramount. Second, is your product and solution just built for a customer, or is it channel and distributor ready? You've got to look at it yourself, okay? What's your go-to-market? Are you going to be channel-led, direct sales-led, a mix of both? What clarity are you going to drive? No channel partner, which includes distributors, are going to invest in you if you don't have clarity in your go-to-market. So I often tell startups, mid-sized companies entering Asia Pacific, you've got to have a channel policy and program that's crystal clear. You may have to build add-ons for Asia Pacific, given the complexity of the market, but you've got to lead with clarity. You've got to ensure, it's like a relationship, right? It's got to work. You've got to have that chemistry. If it doesn't work in 3 months, for example, move on. You've made a mistake, move on. Okay? If a partnership isn't working, it's time for change. 3 months, 6 months, define that. But don't try to make it work if there's no chemistry.
You talk about partnership like a relationship. It's almost like a marriage. When thinking about how to go into that relationship, I like what you just mentioned about assessing the clarity. And I think in partnerships, it's all about clarity, understanding who's giving what, who's getting what, how do they go to market, what investments are going to be part of the journey, how do customers also, perceive the product through which channels. You just mentioned about that sort of sizing that opportunity and choosing which sort of partner or which distributor to go with. If you didn't have any of that, if you didn't have clarity of thought, if you didn't have look, I've got a product, I think the best way to do it is scale through a distributor. The typical theory is go to a distributor and go, look, they can drive scale through a big long tail breath motion. But they haven't thought about everything else. But they just know that they have to enter the market, and they would typically rather than go and select fewer partners, go to a large scale distributor and go, right, let's just go big. There are a lot of no's attached to that, but there are also a lot of companies going, we don't know how to enter.
And that's where GTDC fits in. Okay, we've just launched a report on how to on-ramp distributors. Right, you're coming into any market. and specifically Asia Pacific or Europe or the US, how do you enter the market? How do you get ecosystem and distributor ready, right? How do you go about that entire process? So in GTDC, as I said, we do a lot of research and podcasts like this. So there's a lot to learn, and it's all available on our site. So OnRamp was one of the things we just released in partnership, a good report that I would suggest any vendor look at.
So in that process and the assessment of how to on-ramp, what's a typical lead time? So if I was trying to enter Asia and I looked at the report, I looked at it and I thought, okay, great. Okay, I understand the nuances of it. How long should that on-ramp process be? And at what point do you mentioned like, maybe at 2 months, 3 months, we cut the, we pull the pin and we move somewhere else. But how long should somebody give a relationship to a distributor entering for the first time, the long enough runway for them to understand, okay, how is this working or not?
It depends on the solution set.
Yeah.
Okay, given that some sales cycles can be a year or two. But I think to build your strategy itself could take 2 to 3 months, right? And when I say build your strategy, it's about, okay, you want to enter into Asia Pacific, but which market should I start with? Should I start with ASEAN, Australia, India? What's your product? What are your competitors doing, for example? So you've got to build your market entry plan, right? Have it clear, start the recruitment process, but also remember that when you want to sign up with a distributor, what are you putting into it? Mm-hmm. What's your enablement plan? What kind of technical support or services do you expect the distributor to build for you? Are you going to be marketplace ready? There's a multitude of questions you should be asking. And only then do you decide who to go with, who to partner with, or partner with a few, depending on their strengths, as I said, their solution stack. And if your sales cycle or your ideal customer profile takes 9 months to decide, then you've got to give it at least twice that time to see if things are working. When I said 2 to 3 months, it was basically for a very quick moving product, but it depends on the solution.
You've had a front row seat at many companies who have probably failed at doing it correctly and companies that have done it really well. What are the trends that you've seen on the companies that have done it wrong? Like come in there, try to do the assessment, try to sort of, make sure they got all the pieces correct. And they've missed something fundamental that if you could turn the clock back and said, this is what we missed, this is what we didn't do well, this is or this is the thing we skipped thinking this is not important.
Good question. I think it comes down very simply to expectations. Okay? If you inherently think a distributor or a partner is an ATM down the street where you just go there and draw cash and wait for things to happen, it fails. Number one. Number two is clarity of go-to-market, right? How confusing is it for partners to operate? And third, today is, do you have a streamlined operation that you can effectively address the channel, right? Their challenges, their issues, they are going to come back to you. Like you just said, if you just drop it and say, here's my product, go carry it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
But I think that's what people typically do. And I think I've seen a lot of companies ask that and say, all we need to do is put a distributor on or a partner on. I'm going to put a little bit of money behind them and then go, what's your plan? To the partner. And then the partner or the distributor will turn back and say, how are you going to help me? And then there's friction downstream because at some point, 9 months later, they're losing share, they're losing product, or they're losing to the competitor. And then there's this stalemate of, what are you going to do for me?
Exactly. I'll give you an example. In 2007, way back, I headed corporate accounts for Asia Pacific. And it was an inflection point worldwide and in Asia Pacific where at one stage we said, we're going to make the partners do everything. We turned that around and we said, let's introduce the concept of co-selling. Sales accelerated. We were in the market helping the partner, getting the first few deals, helping them in tough situations. That reduced sales cycles, improved efficiency, thereby increasing profitability. And we saw a surge in partners expanding our pie and expanding their pie. So there are a few things you need to do. There's no silver bullet, but you've got to see what's right for the market, introduce it, invest, and wait to see the results in a few months.
I like that. I think
it's consistency also. Some companies are not consistent in policy. They change their incentives, they change their programs every 3 to 6 months. That just doesn't work for the channel. They're running a business, they need consistency too.
I like what you just mentioned about the channel. I mean, from a channel perspective, they need consistency. They want predictability. They don't want you changing pricing, incentives, rebates every 3 months, depending on the seasons, depending on FX or whatever that comes to mind. What if you flip it around and to vendors that would be listening and thinking, okay, we need to think about this differently. What is the channel asking? What are you seeing that the channel is saying, all right, stop doing this. This is what we need.
I'm going to be very simple. Follow the SLA to the T on both sides. Don't micromanage our business. Support our business. Co-sell with us, right? We are two equal partners, okay? Don't treat us like, again, that ATM story I told you. We're not that, okay? Let's really build this partnership. It takes time. We'll get the results, right? At a simplistic level, I think that's all partners want. Predictability, consistency, and let's be clear. Partners know that the world is changing, technology is changing. They expect change. But give them a heads up. Be transparent. Tell them the why. Okay? Tell them the why and how to do things. And that will help.
What's been one of the most surprising things or trends or insights that you've seen over the last few years, especially in the role that you've been driving now, that it's caught you by surprise or you saw it coming as something that you thought that this change was going to come, it was always going to come, and it materialized. But I'm interested to see your thought on what the last 5 years has sort of been in changes that you've been surprised on.
I think the way distributors have adapted to the new ways of business, right? I spoke about platforms, the way some of the larger players today, and this will go across, are accelerating platforms, right? End of the day, customers, the final end customer wants choice, right? A distributor marketplace is the ideal place for resellers to go to, right? You coming from the cloud world, that not everyone's going to buy one cloud. Okay, they're going to be on AWS, choice. Google, exactly, right? The power of choice. They want to exercise the power of choice. So which other platform can give you the power of choice? Which other platform can give a reseller a solution stack ready to take to market? See, today, the ecosystem needs efficiency. They need streamlined operations. With these platforms, from quote to cash, as I call it, right, can be done so easily for the partner. The second is they're leveraging AI today to give sales insights. Okay, so a partner comes to a distributor, and whether it's the next logical purchase or who they should be targeting or when they should be targeting can all be done today with a distributor, right? So these are small things that are really helping go a long way.
Do you think resellers could exist to bring quote to cash and bring that efficiency, bring that scale? Could it be done without a distributor?
From where I sit, absolutely not. And I'll tell you why, okay? This is about huge investments. Distributors are making massive investments in the platform. No man is an island. No one reseller can really do it, obviously, right? So it's these investments in the platform and the sheer scale they operate in. Some of them have 70,000 resellers across a few geographies. That's not possible in Asia Pacific, right? That's not possible without distributors. So Scale, efficiency, economies of scale all come through distributors.
What do you think the role of distributors, given that scale of distribution, given what's happened last 5 years with the advent of AI coming in and sort of disrupting the platform shift, is the role of a distributor changing, or is it fundamentally always going to be the same?
It's changed, and it's going to change even more, right? A few things. One is, I'm going back to this, the power of the platform and what it gives for the ecosystem. The second is data-driven. They're getting very, very data-driven. Third, their services are getting very specialized. Let's take AI, right? A smaller ecosystem partner to invest in AI resources is very hard. The returns are yet to be really seen. Distributors are going ahead of the curve, investing in resources. They can use them across the ecosystem, so they can afford to have these resources and have it shared. Third, I'm seeing the way they're really accelerating the sales pie for resellers. I'm not going to take names because I need to stay neutral, but I know of a reseller, an MSP, who is very specialized in one area of security. The distributor has been able to give them solutions and services, white labeled or otherwise, to augment theirs, to increase the size. That MSP has increased their revenues threefold in 2 years purely because of the breadth of offerings they have today. They've not invested in most. They're leveraging distributors to create those services, and they're using it. It's fascinating.
So I'm just curious on that point. That's a really interesting statement you made there. If a reseller was looking at, if you look at the role of a distributor and they can drive that scale and growth that you mentioned, and at the same time, do you think that a distributor is, what's the word, like low touch, but just scaled through marketplace? So then a reseller who's in a niche area with a niche product feels, how are you're not helping me? Because they're just doing a small product, but they feel like they're just lost in the ecosystem or lost touch with that distributor. Like if I was a small MSP and saying, I want to be able to scale, I want the distributor to be able to help me, what should a reseller or MSP go and ask the distributor for help? How should they ask for help? That's a long way to say it. How should a small reseller go to a distributor saying, I need help to help scale and grow my business? How can we partner together or do more together?
So the fantastic thing about distributors, most of them are global or huge regional players, but they're very local. They exist in all the countries they operate in. They have teams, they have infrastructure, they've got business development people. All you've got to do is walk across to their office or pick up the phone and go with clarity again, right? Say, this is my business, this is the size, this is what I can bring to the table, what can you bring to the table? Distributors are very agile today, and they've streamlined their operations, so their efficiency to respond has really gone up too.
I love the way that you've positioned it, because I think the traditional view of a distributor could be you are pack and ship. You have warehouse. You're a warehouse facility. Some people, when I spoke to a reseller a long time ago, and I was talking to them about, why don't you think about a distributor to scale and grow your business? And they were like, well, I've got my own warehouse. I was like, well, I don't think that the role is not just a warehouse. The role is scale, the investment, the clarity, the platform, being able to drive. And obviously, if you're using the physical product, but we're moving into services now, you're driving with cloud. So you don't need a warehouse for cloud, you need a different type of warehouse. So, the role of a distributor has changed, and I'm really interested to see, how do they keep having to be agile to be relevant, with the fact that AI is also now coming to disrupt the business a little bit. And there's a lot of other companies or partners that are saying, I don't need a distributor. I can do it myself.
Few things. If people are still saying distributors are pick, pack, ship, they still are. But those people are stuck in the 90s if they don't think they've gone beyond, right?
So I think one of the questions that I want to ask you is about the role of a distributor that used to be traditionally looked at as a pick, pack, ship.
Then you're living in the 80s because they still do pick, pack, ship, but they've moved aggressively ahead is what I'd say.
And you mentioned that now that AI is really coming into the fold, and distributors, you're looking at data with AI. I think the power of AI now, not so much the products and services that are being sold through marketplaces or companies which are developing amazing AI tools now to enhance businesses, be it through all the major hyperscalers, for example, but also now how distributors are leveraging the power of AI internally. Now, you talked about data. They've got a warehouse of data that sees purchase patterns, customer patterns, market trends and patterns that a hyperscaler, a vendor, or a principal doesn't have access to. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of interesting conversations happening around that space.
Absolutely. The kind of data insights, again, can't take names, but one of the heads of Asia Pacific, I was sitting with them last week, and he was saying, Ananth, look at what we can give as value to a reseller, right? Wherever they are, somewhere in Vietnam or wherever, to tell them, guys, here's the area of focus, here's the solution set, these are the services we can offer. AI is telling us to do this. That's one. Two, I also see a trend that's coming up where you mentioned, smaller resellers sometimes feel they're not being covered. It's what people call the long tail, vendors call, right? 80-20 rule. Are they really giving you business? But they are. They are contributing. It may be small, but how could the power of AI automate things for them? How could they be an agentic AI answering all their queries? Okay, that's something distributors are looking at, which is another fascinating area. So just look at the market coverage and the ease of entry and scale for a small ecosystem player. That's going to be fascinating.
What do you think the next 5 years is going to look like?
For distribution specifically, I see them, they're no more order takers, but order makers, the way I see it, right? Given the strengths they have. Apart from the platform, apart from offering amazing services, being data-driven, I also see changing GTMs. I see distributors cooperating apart from competing. Each will have strengths in certain areas, say cybersecurity or AI or cloud, and there is a possibility that they will cross-leverage each other, right? I see the possibility of bigger solution stacks. Today, if you look at the ecosystem, it's the most complex we've ever seen. Startups are mushrooming. Startups need to get to market. Distributors can enable them, can scale them. So the offerings that distributors will be able to give the market are going to be very, very powerful, right? We see orchestration being ramped up across, right? A startup is able to speak to a large global SI. Who else will bring them together but a distributor, right? So these things will happen. We also perhaps see a lot of consolidation happening. And the reason I say that, and consolidation does not mean just mergers and acquisitions, but partnerships among distributors, right? Let me give you an example, and I'm just saying this as an example. A one-off distributor in an ASEAN country, right, who only operates in that country, is not going to be able to build the platform or the tools at the same scale or efficiency. So perhaps they would partner with a global distributor to bring that to market, right? They've got amazing market knowledge, market insight, and their own customers. So how will that partnership look like? So there could be partnerships, very strong partnerships, apart from mergers and acquisitions among distributors.
You mentioned about global distributors. How does someone think about it from the choice between a global distributor and a distributor which is not global, but sitting in a particular country, a particular ASEAN country, which is not a bigger name? How would they look at the nuances between choosing a global name versus a non-global name? Is it because they've got the power of the funds and the money?
Absolutely not. I think who can help you? And there is at times not much of a difference when you're in the country, okay? But as I said, the platform, the services, the data will change things. However small you are, in whichever market you are, you want to reduce your sales cycles, improve your profitability. So will streamlined operations bring you that? Will data insights bring you that? Will the ability to get white labeled services from a distributor enable you to expand your pie? Where should you go then, right? So it's not about global, it's who can offer you these services, whether global, whether regional, or whether local.
I think your view on Asia, because it's got such a hot pot of different types of economies, right? You've got developed market, you've got emerging markets, you've got big countries, you've got Indonesia with a huge population, you've got that population scale.
You've got India.
You've got India, which is, is booming away. And I think you sort of goes back to that earlier conversation, which is a little bit of a mix of choosing the right distributor for the right market, using the data and insights as to how they choose. Which markets do they go in first? And which partner is there to say, because I've got the right partner in a different country, but no, I want to go to India. But do I have the right partner in India to help me do that? Like how, those nuances of looking at, and I'm sure it's same in other geos around the world, but Asia has always this huge opportunity to drive such scale and volume that I'm sure you've seen a lot of companies come to you and go, okay, I want to enter Asia. Which one do I go first?
And distributors 9 times out of 10 can give you a good idea based on their experience, right? They've dealt with thousands of vendors, right? They know who's playing in which market. So they are the first port of call, I would say, to get this advice. It's also cultural fit. Do your products fit a certain culture? Yeah. I mean, you and I both have operated in this world, right? Tell me, whether it's buying behavior, language, culture, anything, how similar are Thailand and Singapore in that, right? It's different. So, or Indonesia and Vietnam, or India and Australia, it's so diverse, right? So that's super critical too.
Cultural fit. I never really thought about that. I think you've mentioned something in there which actually makes me think about, I haven't really considered how does cultural fit actually fit into the whole nuances of choosing a product. And I'm sure you've seen it go wrong, and I'm sure you've seen it go right.
Yes.
So, I'm also curious on, we talked about, where distributors are going to be looking to invest and get it right over the next few years. How do you think about it over the next few years where what distributors need to start paying attention to that they may probably not have thought about it before? I mean, the next 5 years is data and insights and basically driving that scale and growth. Your outside perspective looking in, do you see it saying, hey, if they don't look at these areas, could a distributor be obsolete? Could a distributor go, hey, I missed the mark. We didn't merge, we didn't invest, we didn't stay relevant in a certain area. I mean, I don't know, it's a bit hard to sort of look around the corner, but, what do you think distributors should pay more particular attention to make sure they're driving relevancy in the market?
I think it goes back to these things. Platform, services, data-driven, new partnerships, and consolidation.
Yeah.
The way I see it.
Yeah.
It's like these 5 pillars of the future of distribution, and that's something we've also called out in our GTDC report on the future of distribution.
Yeah, I see GTDC having a lot of relevance to the market, and I think for vendors and for partners who need to be thinking about how to get involved, how do they look at getting involved?
Get in touch with me. Right?
Simple as that.
So one, our website is a wealth of information. Go there, check it out. Apart from podcast research, we do a lot of data intelligence. I've tied up with IDC and Context for this part of the world. So we're looking at data intelligence. We do education for distribution. A lot of companies, again, I won't take names, vendors, put people into distribution who don't understand distribution. So we have an education series. We have a vendor advisory council. Today in APJ, we have about 25 vendors who help the cause of distribution and vice versa, clarity on what they want from distributors and the other way around. And we also have events. We have an upcoming summit in APJ on November 17th and 18th, where we bring distributors and vendor people together to brainstorm on the future, the present, what needs to be done, and we have some phenomenal speakers lined up. We also run quite a few initiatives. So one of the things we really want to accelerate in this part of the world with distributors, and we think they can make a huge difference, is on ESG. So we are talking with vendors, we are starting to do activities out here around ESG. And of course, AI too. So you'll see.
The big disruptor that's always
Absolutely.
disrupting everything.
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious with that, like how that whole initiative that was come for GTTC, why was it born? Was there a gap in the market? Is that why it started to come out, and how you got involved because of?
Yes and no. I think at a worldwide level, GTDC was to advocate, educate, and influence on behalf of distributors. Okay, primary focus is vendors, right? And then the ecosystem, obviously, telling them what impact can distributors make and explaining to them what impact they're already making and helping both these really expand their pies. That's at the core. That's the core focus.
Having a great impact there.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I think about, and I just want to, as we come to wrapping it up soon, but one of the things I'm just curious about, because you've had an amazing career where you've seen the landscape of distribution changing. You're in the thick of it. You're advising distributors. You're seeing how the nuances of ecosystems play. You've got in the back of your mind, how this whole thing's going to orchestrate. You can see it probably 100 meters down the road of whether someone's going to be successful, when somebody's going to not. Has anything surprised you with people entering the market or how they've worked with the distributor and thought, hey, I never thought that was going to work, but they got it right or they got it wrong?
I think what I'm loving seeing is distributor agility, right? I think that's come a long way, okay? The second thing is their sheer efficiency. It's not about logistics, right? But the possibility of giving you a single plate of glass where you can see all your renewals that are coming up for a customer across various vendors and be able to take action on that. I can go on and on. There's so much that they're driving today that, 30 years ago, that was a dream, right? And I think vendors have helped in this exercise in a big way. 30 years ago or 32 years ago, you wanted a distributor to be single product. If you carried Compaq, I don't want you to be carrying HP or vice versa, right? Those days are over. I think vendors have understood that the power of distribution being multi-vendor actually helps them.
So you've had a huge career working for corporates, and as I mentioned before, and consultancy services. I'm just curious, if I was to wind the clock back and sort of talk to you, your younger self, knowing what you've done, knowing what you've achieved, knowing the influence that you've been able to drive, the challenges, I'm sort of going back to that mindset of backing yourself because you've been able to do that so much. I mean, the conversation we're having, we could spend hours unpacking bit by bit and all the different nuance information that you have. What would you tell yourself? I know I put you on the spot, but I'm curious about that.
I'm just saying that's a very deep question. So have I lived out all my ambitions? Absolutely no. And I think you need to realize that things change, right? When you're in your first job at 22, 23, your aspiration is to drive a Ferrari sports car.
Still is.
Right? No, it changes over time. It becomes a family car, a safe car, So your priorities keep changing. Am I happy when I look back at my career? For the most part, yes. There are always bumps along the road, right? It's how fast you learn from those and move on. That's the way I see it. Overall, I'm happy. And to me, what I'm currently doing at GTDC or my consultancy is something which really makes me wake up every morning once again,
Gets you out of bed.
It gets me out of bed, and sometimes I'm happy I've given up those myriad of hours I spent in reviews, which honestly, looking back, some of them really didn't make sense, right? You were a participant or a fly on the wall, or sometimes you were involved, but when you look at what outcomes they drove, very little. So I know when I work now, I am creating impact, and that's most important to me.
What's been your biggest highlight? If I was to ask you something that you've been the most proud of over the last, in the career highlights that you've had, what would that be?
Again, deep.
There's probably not one. I'm sure there's a few, but
Yeah,
if you had to sort of pin it.
Yeah, but there are a few things, right? I think one, the way I entered Microsoft was by chance, right? I was working for Compaq. Microsoft was in the same building. The MD of Microsoft India and I happened to be in the same elevator. Started a conversation. The rest was history, right?
Well, so, you really did an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
That's the...
No, he started questioning me too. Yeah, but it was an elevator pitch, which changed my life. It was a turning point. I think moving out of India in 2004 to Malaysia, a country I knew very little of, but I had this hunger to understand different cultures, different markets, emerging, mature, which also then got me to a regional role where it was right from New Zealand, Australia, to ASEAN and Korea and Japan and every other country. So that diversity of experiences, diversity of roles gave me a very big kick.
What fuels your hunger? You mentioned that before, and I think it's something that it's an interesting nuance because it got you out of India, went to Malaysia, you did a regional role, you just kept moving and moving. But how does that motivation that fuels your hunger, what's that drive? If somebody was to be able to unpack that a little bit more, if you could, how did that drive?
Maybe now, from where I sit, reflecting on it, I think it was this passion or hunger to look at diverse roles, diverse markets, diverse cultures. I've always been fascinated with different cultures that propelled me. But I think a huge catalyst was, for many years, he still is today, a mentor who is genuine about your career, having hard conversations with you, sometimes pushing you. In fact, I'm going back 21 years, sorry, but I really thought whether I should be leaving India and moving to Malaysia. But he said, pack your bags and come. And I followed him, did just that. It worked out fantastically. I never looked back after that, right? So a strong mentor is something that's so important.
I think it's amazing. I think the fact that, especially when you're looking at career choices, which are going to be disruptive, and people who sit on that cusp of, is this going to change my life? And I think that was probably a huge pivotal moment for you making that move, because you could have easily not done that.
And the family.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you didn't do that, if you didn't move, what would you be doing?
No, that you can't say, right? It could have turned out even better, maybe, according to some people. You never know.
Yeah.
All I know is the steps I took worked out well, and I'm happier for
it always works out in the end, they say that, right? And no matter what you do, you're always going to do it. But I think I like the fact that you talked about having a good mentor. And I think a lot of people have to have that mentorship in their life to be able to bounce the ideas, to hold them accountable to a higher version of themselves, to make sure they say, don't just stay inside your comfort zone. Because I think it's very easy. And that's the reason why I'm curious about this conversation with you, particularly around how you've grown, because there's a trend and an insight as you're seeing how you pushed yourself and continue to push yourself, and the jump from being a company man,
corporate worker,
corporate worker, to being now doing what you do. But you're constantly pushing, I guess, the envelope on being uncomfortable, backing yourself and doing that. And then the role of a mentor to be able to help you navigate that. So my question was going to be like, how important is having a mentor in your life? And if you don't have a mentor, how do you go find one?
Good question. I would say don't have one mentor, have multiple mentors. Get a few views, right? Mentors need to be developed. It could be a friend, it could be a relation, it could be a spouse, it could be someone at work. It's chemistry. It's just got to work. And you've got to see genuine interest. a lot of companies have mentor-mentee programs. You sign up, etc., etc. Some of them work, but you've got to have that chemistry and commitment, right? It just doesn't work without that. And you've got to look out for them. They've got to look out for you. So it's not easy, right? There are instances where I've been able to help that mentor too. When he was twice in a tough position, we spoke. And I think it helped him too, my feedback. So
I'm sure you'll be an absolute asset to be a mentor to anybody who'd want to be able to take your knowledge and insight.
I hope so.
So as we come to wrapping it up, I'm interested in what the next 5 years look like for you. What's next on the horizon for you?
So at a personal level, I've just moved from Singapore to KL. So we're loving it, setting up home, all that on the personal side. The beauty of KL is it's also close to Singapore as a regional hub, so I continue to do what I'm doing. I think continuing on this journey with GTDC, I'm passionate about what's happening with distribution and the impact they can make. And as I said, the next 5 years is going to be one of the most exciting, given the complexity of the ecosystem. I'm also looking at how we can help startups beyond just building ecosystems, but also in truly helping them on a go-to-market other than partnerships. So we're working on that.
Well, that's super exciting. Ananth, thank you for joining us today. I've learned so much about you personally. I've learned so much about the role of distributors. I've also learned more about you that I didn't even know, about what fuels you and what makes you drive and your passion. Thank you very much for joining us on this journey.
Oh, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, Harry. It's been really great. Thank you.